Papa Pico with Messi and Suarez. Tate in the box. Lionel Messi. Messi out wide. Shot goal!
It's that time again. Welcome back to the Player Manager Podcast. I'm the manager. He's the player. And we have a bunch of interesting things to talk about, from his personal team, Bayern Munich, potentially getting rid of their longtime star forward. Not so potentially anymore. That news is breaking by the day. CONCACAF Champions League is on the horizon for Inter Miami and one Julian Gressel. Newcastle celebrates with 300,000+ fans. And the most important question that everybody is asking, is it too easy for New Zealand to make the World Cup? And how involved was I, being named Zealand, in that conspiracy? And with that, a bunch of exciting stuff to talk about today. Julian, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's a beautiful Sunday here in South Florida. It was actually raining today.
I'm
Quite
jealous.
a
Okay.
quite a tough day, but
Oh, yeah. How will you manage?
yeah, exactly. But I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, that's good. I did, I went for a very long walk to get my favorite meal today, which I feel like it's Cane's Chicken, by the way. They've put those in New York now. And every once in a while, normally on Sunday, I try to eat right, try to keep myself good. I like to indulge once a week.
Okay.
So I'll call it a pilgrimage to Cane's, hashtag not sponsored. Just
Nice.
to get some nice, good old fashioned fried chicken. I think, if you eat a food early enough in your childhood and enough, it just becomes like a part of your genetic code.
Yeah.
And even if it isn't actually that good, you just eat it and feel better.
It's
You have
it's
something
funny
like
that you say that, because I had a moment like that today where I had a peach yogurt today. And as a kid growing up, all I would eat in Germany was just peach yogurts, and it just took me back. I was like,
Yeah.
"Yep, just took me back." I haven't had it in such a long time, but it took me back, right back on the couch with my grandpa. We would always eat peach yogurts together.
Oh man, is it the little Yoplait one? Because I
I'm
don't
not
know if that
sure
was
what brand.
okay.
We don't want to do too much advertising here.
Oh
so.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, no,
Free.
this
No
is
free
all
ads.
unpaid. Yeah,
Yeah.
no free ads. So you got to subscribe for that. Obviously, please do subscribe for that on YouTube if you happen to be watching there, and you should be, because we look good. But if you're on Spotify or wherever else you get your podcasts, we appreciate you as well. We'll start with the news in MLS this week. Did you have a favorite thing that happened in MLS this week, Julian? I know you're an actual player in the league.
Yes, I am. I wish I would get more playing time, but at the moment. But yeah, it's honestly, I mean, obviously good games. I think a couple that stand out to me. The game in Atlanta seemed to be firing out of all cylinders. Atlanta was down 3-1, and then all of a sudden they came back 4-3, winning the game. And then I actually got to tune into this one, West Coast game, San Diego versus LAFC, where obviously we play LAFC next, and it has some implications for us in a sense. But really entertaining game, back and forth. San Diego scored. I think it was 3-2 at half, and then it ended 3-2. So the first half was definitely the half to watch, which worked out because I fell asleep at halftime. But it
You
was, yeah, exactly. But it was, I think that those two games stand out to me. And I have one thing after you go. I have one thing from off the field that stood out to me.
Well, I was happy for Almiron, because in that win, it's weird
yeah.
we hit the same game, but he scored his first goal since coming back, and I always think it's awesome. Normally, people think of I deal with European people that still have the misconception MLS is a retirement league, right? But it's cool to see somebody like Miggy Almiron that basically came up in MLS, and like Atlanta's his club. That's the club where he really launched himself. Obviously, you were around for that. And then he goes off and does all these great things. And now he's able to come back and get that kind of love and support again and be able to score that first goal. I'd say it was a cool moment, especially with the way that they won the game. What was your cool off the field thing though?
Well, I'm going to ask you this.
Oh.
LeBron James or Michael Jordan?
Oh, no, I didn't know that this podcast was a trap today. Okay. So my dad is from Chicago.
Oh, wow. We're going
Born
deep.
and raised. When I was 1.5 years old, he took me to see Michael Jordan in his final season with the Bulls. And as such, I'm going to say something. I think the most talented basketball player that's ever lived is LeBron. I think the best player that's ever played basketball is Michael Jordan. I know that's a sitting on the fence answer, but if I have to narrow it down, my answer is Michael Jordan.
Okay.
That's why.
That's a much better answer than what Javier Mascherano gave, my head coach.
I saw something like this.
Yeah, so that was the moment that I'm talking about. So for the people that don't know, he got asked, our coach, Inter Miami, after the game, post-game press conference. He sits there, and I think one of the questions was exactly what I just asked you: LeBron James or Michael Jordan? And everybody is like, "What? This is really what we're asking a head coach right now?" And Mascherano, his answer was unbelievable. It was just like, "I don't watch much basketball," and just kind of left it at that. It was just great.
Michael Jordan, LeBron James.
I don't like too much basket, so I will not be there.
Yeah, so that was, I thought, a real funny moment, and just one of those moments where like US soccer media coverage just kind of like, come on, you know?
I'll tell you what. I saw, so I didn't know what actually happened. All I saw was, must have been like an Instagram reel or something where the title was, I can't believe US soccer media is asking these questions. And I saw Mascherano. So when you said that, then I was like, no way, they actually asked him that. But I think the one that's far worse is when they asked Bastian Schweinsteiger if he could win the World Cup with Chicago Fire.
Do you expect, now that you're here, Bastian, that World Cup goal for Chicago Fire is a realistic expectation?
So the World Cup. Well, not the World Cup. We as a club don't play for the World Cup.
That is infinitely worse. I think if it's a slow media day and you're really trying to get to know the coach and kind of personalize the coach, I don't hate the question. Obviously, the context of maybe that press conference wasn't, it should have been about other things, then the question's really stupid. But I think it's more the question you'd ask in a one-on-one interview than a press conference, but it's not, it could be worse. It has been worse in the US before. That Schweinsteiger clip, I don't know if America will ever live that down.
Absolutely. Yeah. But so I'm gonna ask him again, maybe tomorrow on the flight when we go actually to LA. And so we fly tomorrow. Today's Sunday night, so we fly tomorrow to LA, and the Lakers actually play at home tomorrow night, where there might be an odd chance that we might go and see it, since it's 2 days before the game. So maybe he'll have an answer after we go watch that game. But that'd
be really funny content for the club if they could get like Mascherano and LeBron dapping each other up in the tunnel, and he's like, you should have picked me, or something silly like that.
Yeah, that's funny. That would be funny.
I mean, that's going to be awesome. I'll be looking for that. Do you have a worst question that an American journalist has ever asked you since you started playing soccer? Like anything that stands out in your mind like that?
That's a good question. I think I got a weird question last year that just kind of sticks out to me right now. I'm just like, I didn't even know how to answer, because it was a question, I think, about Leo Messi returning for this 2025 season. And it was like towards the end of the year, and we were getting ready for the playoffs, whatever, like some like the last couple games of the season. And I got a question about Leo Messi returning this year. What do you think about him coming back or not? He's maybe he's not coming back. I was like, what do you mean? Like, he has his contract, and like has nothing ever said otherwise that he would not fulfill that contract, at least, and play this season. So it's just like, I was like, what? Like, what are you trying to fish for here? It's just those weird ones. But I've gotten asked about the podcast a couple times, and those are always interesting. But no, other than that, nothing really weird. Like, I don't know, like that.
No. How's World Cup qualification going with Inter Miami sort of questions? No. Well,
no, nothing.
Hey, that's good. It means the U.S. is getting better. I
technically,
we're at least we're getting journalists that are educated on the topic. And speaking of Leo Messi, he did come back this year, and he scored in a win against the Philadelphia Union. So even though our Julian Gressel's not necessarily getting on the field as much, Inter Miami's ticking along with a 2-1 win. Even though I would like to point out, as much as I'm trying to paint the rosy picture of the team, kind of got outplayed a little bit. Philadelphia played very well in that game. I can get, hold on, I have it.
Okay.
19 shots to 7. That's,
Oof.
I mean, obviously Messi scores a goal and you win anyways, but that is just a little blip in the road. I guess that happens over the course of a season. As long as you win, it's okay, right?
Yeah, I think if we look at the game, I think that we had a really, really great first 35 minutes, and then gave up a couple chances, and then they all of a sudden start having some life and belief, and um, I really didn't think in the first 30, 35 minutes they had anything. So it's just natural that, Philly's a good team. They're on top there. They're right there with us, and then that was a clash between two top teams, I think. So yeah, not surprised that they kind of in the second half maybe had a couple more chances, more shots, and then all those things. And um, what a goal Leo scores. You mentioned him, coming in. I think 2 minutes later, or he gets subbed in. The whole stadium erupts when he goes to warm up, and then he comes in, obviously, and yeah, what a return and what a goal. The little fake with his left and then going on his right, and it's just automatic. It's so incredible. Um, and yeah, then you're up 2-0 and you're kind of like, okay, we have a game in 3 days. Maybe your head kind of
Yeah.
goes towards that, and all of a sudden they come back and they make it interesting. And like I said, they're a good team. So yeah, credit to them, but ultimately credit to our guys for hanging on and being able to grind out that win. And um, honestly, we've made it through this really, really difficult start of the season really well. Obviously top of the table in MLS, haven't lost, and now huge matchup with LAFC in the quarterfinals, I believe, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. So certainly a good start for us.
It's impressive how easy he makes it look.
Oh,
I know we've talked about this a million times, but
crazy.
what blows my mind is everybody else he's playing against is really good, and yet somehow he's able to
Yeah.
make them all just look so not good, so consistently.
Yeah.
He's a
I mean, it's
Martian.
just like he scores that, right, and I'm on the like next to that goal where he actually scores, and I was warming up, and he went to celebrate in the other set, and I just like stand there and I just clap and you smile and you just kind of take it all in, and you're so, I don't know, I'm trying to be so in the moment in those situations where you just appreciate the greatness, and unfortunately he's not going to play forever, and he won't do
Feels like
these
he
things.
might at this
Yeah.
pace, but yeah.
Yeah, and he won't do these things forever, but it's just, yeah, every time. So like you said, it's nothing so fancy, but it's just like, I don't know, there's just something so beautiful about those types of goals that, yeah, just stand out to me.
I think what sticks out to me when I have those conversations is I've interviewed and kind of worked with non-league managers in England before,
Yeah.
and I've talked to them, particularly usually when you're talking to them, it's because they're playing an English football league team. So somebody in the top 4 divisions, and if you're non-league, you're below that. And they'll always say, I mean, I've heard it almost every time I've had those conversations. And by that I mean I think in 2 of the 3 of these types of conversations I've had, that they'll say, "Yeah, we can do all the same things they can do. They just do it more consistently." So if we can have a day, and it's part of their team talk. They go like, if we can have a day where we're doing those things, we can beat them.
Yeah.
And then when you get to somebody like Messi, he's doing everything right basically every time. Right? The consistency with which he's doing everything is kind of what separates him. That and just the ball doesn't leave his foot. I don't think I've ever seen him take a bad touch in my entire life. If you have, I think that would be breaking news if you could share it with the podcast.
I have, but the ball certainly seems to fall always right back to him at some point as well. So
Yeah. Well, and as much as we could probably spend the entire podcast talking about the amazing things Messi does, even though he's taken a bad touch, allegedly, put that at the front of the New York Times, is then, obviously the next Messi, Kevin Sullivan, not to put too much pressure on him, the 15-year-old who plays for Philadelphia Union. And there's been a lot of discussion about what to do with him and how to handle it, because obviously Taylor Twellman, Manchester City scouts, both referred to him as basically the best 14-year-old in the world last year. He started to get into the first team. And yet he has not really advanced himself into the first team. This year, he's been really good with the Philadelphia Union reserve team. It's worth pointing out. It's not like he's,
Yeah.
started to sputter and be terrible. What it feels like is they're just being careful with him. So my question is, do you agree with that philosophy?
Yeah, I do. He's 15. He's half my age. It's insane.
is that what you were laughing about? Like,
yeah,
I saw
that's what
you,
I was like. I had that realization. Like, sorry, I threw you off, but I had that moment. It was just like, oh my gosh, he's half my age. Yeah,
and he is apparently good enough to play in the league, which is unbelievable.
Oh, I believe that. I believe that 100%, and I do agree with how careful they are with him. I don't think he needs a ton of minutes at this moment. I don't think he needs to be thrown into the deep end and really get these experiences in MLS games where everybody's kind of like waiting for him to play anyways. So he's going to be one way or another. He does something great. He's going to be, through the roof. And it didn't work out for certain other guys. And if he's not doing, the things that people expect him to do, then it goes the other way. And it's way too early for that. So I think it's great to kind of keep him out of the spotlight a little bit with the MLS Next Pro, which is still a really good level. And I mean, he's, like I said, he's 15. There's a lot of years left for his career, and a lot of minutes to be played in his career. So no need to, throw him in there against, I don't know who in this league to really, just for him to, I don't know, get hurt or, have these types of games right now. But I think they're doing the right thing.
You mean to really blow your mind right now?
Please don't, if it has something to do with my age.
No. When Kevin Sullivan is Messi's age, it will be the year 2047.
Yeah.
So he when we're talking about if Kevin Sullivan has a career like Manchester City thinks he might have, like people that have scouted him and watched him think he might have. And at this point, the way he's playing at MLS Next Pro, it definitely seems like there is a level there. And again, he's 15. If he has that sort of career, we will be talking about Kevin Sullivan maybe in the U.S. men's national team picture, but I think at the very least in the MLS picture until 2047.
Yeah,
that to me puts in perspective how young he is more than anything.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's a long time, and definitely no need for him to be in the spotlight every single weekend starting now.
No.
If that's going to happen for 20 plus years, I don't think he needs that. And if you can delay that more and develop him more in the quiet, I think he's got some good mentors on that team. I know a few of those guys, and I'm sure they're taking. I see how they're taking care of him. So it's for me, it's the right thing how they're doing it.
Also helps his older brother Quinn's already with the first team as well.
Played really well.
Yeah, he's a U.S. national team prospect in his own right. It's going to feel weird that his little brother's getting so much hype, but the history of football is more littered with players that were really good at 15 and didn't make it than were really good at 15 and did make it. So I agree wholeheartedly. Around the world, a couple of other pieces of MLS news. Montreal, formerly the artist formerly known as the Impact, they fired their manager after 5 games. Our producers encouraged me to say, I guess he wasn't impactful, but of course I wouldn't do that. That's too cringe and painful. I hate firing a manager after 5 games. How do you feel about it? Is it ever justified?
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at Montreal and what they're doing and what they've done last year. He was the same. He wasn't new or anything. He was there last year, and I think they've been consistently one of the least spending teams in MLS. So it's not like he has a ton of DP budget. I don't even know if I think they have one DP, to work with. Where I think their transfer fee money hasn't. I don't think they've bought a player for a transfer fee, even DPs or anything. So you have to look at kind of what he has to work with in a sense. I think, and for that, I don't think he was the reason why 5 games or after 5 games he should be fired. I think last year he took them to the playoffs with similar budget restraints. I think they were the least paying club, so lowest salary in the whole league, and he took him to the playoffs. So clearly there's something there. Clearly he has, an ability to coach up some young players and develop young players. And um, I guess, ownership didn't feel like that after these 5 games in the start of the season. But at the same time, I think it's too early to really make a change with a coach that was successful last year, in my opinion. And yeah, so it's a tough way to kind of make that decision after so early.
There's a lot of teams that do this, and obviously he's there last year, but the idea that you would potentially fire someone so early in the season, if he could be fired after 5 games, just get rid of him in the offseason. You've got the whole offseason to get another coach in and it's so much harder to change coaches in the middle of the season. I mean, you're barely able the new coach is barely able to get all their stuff into the office before they have to coach the first game. But if you fire somebody at the end of the last season and give a new coach months to watch film and understand his team and maybe get a couple of guys signed, even if they are for free. I've always hated this move, but there are certain teams that go for it, and clearly for teams like Chelsea, it can work, right? There are teams in the world that are able to make manager roulette actually pay off with titles. So
but I don't. He also, I've gotten to know the business a little bit now over the last 8-9 years. So you never really know what's going on behind closed doors and how relationships are going and developing and some sort of thing. So what we see is not always the reason why things are certainly happening. So I don't know if that's the case. Obviously, in Montreal, I have absolutely no idea, but I just kind of know that there's usually more to a decision than just the results. I'll leave it at that.
That happens. There was a manager, me being an expert in all the weird and wonderful things of the world of football, there was a manager that got fired twice in 4 games from 2 different clubs.
Wow.
So he got fired. He managed 2 games, got fired, and then he got hired by another team, managed 2 games, and got fired again. And neither one of the clubs has given an official statement, although I did get, after I made that video, which I was just curious, I got an email from a Portuguese fan that detailed basically the fact that one of the owners wanted him to start a player and he wouldn't. And then the other one of the owners wanted him to sign some player or something. And I think actually it was the goalkeeping coach that he had, basically wanted to change out the goalkeeper who was the captain. And they just fired the entire coaching staff instead of letting that happen.
That's my point right there.
Exactly. Yeah. It's normally politics. And then, of course, there is the impending CONCACAF Champions Cup match that we have coming up. You are involved in Inter Miami against LAFC. It's getting into the go time. No more Cavalier in Jamaica here. We're playing LAFC, trying to get towards a trophy, towards a title. And how's the team feeling going into the game? Besides, of course, being excited to go to the Lakers game. I'm sure that's going to be fun.
Well, if we are going, I'm not sure if we actually are.
Yeah.
But I can't believe you're doing Cavaliers like that, man. Like, come on.
I love Cavalier. I'm just saying, Cavalier probably can't win the cup. Both Inter Miami and LAFC can. That's what I'm saying.
I guess. But it's an exciting matchup. It's obviously we played there the first game and home the second leg, so that's a little bit of advantage for us. But I'm excited. I'm excited to play at their stadium. I'm hoping it's going to be full. I think so. Should be with Messi coming and kind of a big game, obviously on a Wednesday night. So I think it'll be a really, really good matchup. Really good teams, 2 teams that have achieved things, that have won things, and that want to go ahead and are ambitious enough to really make a push for this trophy. So it will be very, very interesting to go there, and hopefully we can get a result there on Wednesday, and then we'll have a second leg to play for at home next week. But yeah, like you said, these are games that we wanted to be in and we want to play in, and it's really go time.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's going to be difficult at LAFC. Do you have? I'm gonna ask you the best worst journalist question of all time. Do you have a prediction for how this one plays out?
Yes. I mean,
give me your nice canned "I'm a player" answer to this question.
Yeah, I'm a player, and I'm obviously we just got to do the things we need to do to win this game. That's it. Do the things we need to do. No, but listen, I think we have a 6-hour flight tomorrow, right? We just came back playing last night, and truth is, in MLS and in this league, that's never easy to do. On 3 days rest, flying across the country to go and play a really, really important game away is really, really hard. So that's why I said I'm very happy that we have the second leg at home. I think that is a little bit of an advantage for us. But at the same time, LAFC are good. They're good, man, and they can hurt you in many different ways. They have real difference makers, real quality players, but so do we. So we certainly have some ballers on our team, and we have been shown or have been very, very good as of late as well. So we go there with a lot of confidence, and in a way, I hope that we understand obviously what it takes to fly 6 hours, 6.5 hours across the country, different time zone. I think local time kickoff is 8:30 p.m. West Coast time, so that's 11:30 p.m. for us on the East Coast. Like, talk about strains on your body. That's like my deepest deep sleep stage right there. 11:30.
Yeah.
So it's certainly challenging to do that, but they'll have it next week, so it'll be difficult for them to come over here with another MLS game in the middle of it. So it's about managing that, and then being to just able to focus on those 90 minutes and not making as many mistakes as the other team.
Well, we're going to be updating you with what happened right here on this podcast the following week. And it's time for a quick break. I promise we'll be right back. Now it's time for us to step out of the bounds of North America and talk about the real hard-hitting stories like this one from inside North America. The Club World Cup has kicked Club Leon out of the Club World Cup. Now, the reason is, just to fill you in on the background before we start talking about it, that the ownership of Pachuca, who is also qualified for the Club World Cup, which is a new attempt by FIFA to compete something to create something to compete with the Champions League and the like, and to create a big club competition of their own. Well, Pachuca and Club Leon are owned by the same people. So they have to kick one out according to FIFA's rules. They picked Club Leon, I'm assuming by flipping a coin or something. And now they're trying to set up a playoff. So there's new life. LAFC, who's the team that lost the final against Club Leon, will be going up against Club America, who's the highest team in the coefficient in CONCACAF that didn't make it. And Julian, can you make sense of all of this for us?
Listen, it's FIFA. They have their own ideas and their own thoughts a lot of the times. And yeah, that's, I guess, one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, for them to make a play-in game is like, of course, another money grab, and they love their income in that sense, and to have a game to be part of this best tournament in the world that they now created. Yeah, I guess is what it is. I'm obviously happy to see a shot given to another MLS team. I think it'll be an exciting matchup just because of where we are in this region. I don't think any of the European teams really care about LAFC or Club America in a sense. But for us, I think it's exciting. We talked about this last week, the weeks before, all the time, MLS versus Liga MX, and it could be one of those matchups that is certainly exciting. And obviously, LAFC, heavy hitter in MLS, Club America, probably the best team in Mexico over the last 4 or 5 years. So certainly interesting.
I don't hate the idea of a plan, because I feel like what a plan does is it keeps a team from being able to complain. You've basically taken the two teams that would have the best claim to the spot. You have the team that lost to Club Leon in the title game, and then you have the team that is top in the coefficient, which is what they use to pick.
Yeah.
Like half the teams in this freaking competition didn't win the Champions League. They were just the next best. I mean, Salzburg's in it just because they made a couple of round of 16s in the Champions League. But I think the play-in match is fine. I think the idea that Club Leon can't compete in it, they shouldn't have let it get this far. If that's really the rule, and
That's
it
true.
is, and it's not a terrible rule. UEFA is going to start running into this problem all over the place where multiple clubs owned by the same group are in the Champions League or something, right? Where they're having to start to deal with that because Manchester City owns Girona and things like Lyon is owned by the same guy that owns this club in Belgium and this club in Brazil and all this stuff, right?
Yep.
So I don't hate the rule FIFA has. It's like a weirdly good rule for FIFA, an organization that is very good at not having those. But they've been in it we've been talking about this Club World Cup for 6 or 7 months. They won the Champions Cup in 2023. They're not even the most recent winner, right? Like everybody has known the moment you created the format for the tournament that they were going to be there.
Yeah.
We did the whole draw. They're in this match. We know who they're playing. Their fans are buying tickets. And now you show up and you're like, nah.
Yeah,
we're just gonna kick you out. So I don't have a problem with the rule. I have a problem with everything else around it.
I could see that. I think that's a fair point. I think that's and players also separate from the owners and stuff. So certain that maybe those players either one were excited or they weren't, so either they're happy or they're not happy. But I think you kind of nailed it. I think they should be in it, and you said it in Europe, and I think it's becoming more of a theme that multiple teams and multiple clubs that are successful in different countries are owned by the same sorry, my dog's barking here.
Yeah, well, he's very upset for Club Leon too, apparently.
Yeah,
I mean,
yes, he is. Yeah. Freddie, I'm gonna get him a Club Leon scarf or something. Yeah, I'm surprised. Is this his first appearance on the podcast?
It is, amazingly.
Yes.
How do we go a year without Freddie piping up on some
know
topic?
he's well trained. He's well trained. Yes. But getting back to it, I don't know. I mean, so I for one am excited about the Club World Cup to play in it as a player, right? And I know owners have their incentives. I think we all saw the payout structures of what clubs will get, and that's I think how FIFA is trying to generate a lot of incentive for clubs to really show up and really do well too, because the winner gets a lot of money. So it'll be interesting to see obviously how different teams approach it, and we've talked about this a lot I think previously, but I for one as a player I'm excited to play it. It's obviously right in the middle of our season. It's not like vacation time basically like the guys in Europe, so it's a bit different, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, what are you hearing just as a player, like from friends around the league or other people that what is the general mood towards playing the Club World Cup, or is it just not something that's really been talked about because it still feels like with so many matches between now and then that it's just way in the distance? Yeah,
that's I think what it is, right? I think the Premier League just created this transfer window separation, so there's a little bit of movement before and then a break and then another window afterwards. So clubs will have options. I haven't heard anything really too much chatter about it. We're in the CONCACAF Champions Cup right now and MLS, and I think that obviously takes precedent for us. But hey, June's going to come quick. It's a month and a half out, and we're right there. 2 months, sorry, 2.5 months. My math didn't math up there.
Something like that. I would nod no matter what you said there, to be honest. Yes, 100%.
But no, so I think as we approach it more and more, I think teams will think about it more and more and have a plan of kind of what's it going to look like. And the big question will be the European teams, right? The biggest teams, the Real Madrid, the Bayern Munich, the Dortmund, the whatever, like Man City, those types of clubs, and that's what the real questions will be, if they bring all their players, if they bring some of their second young guys, whatever. But FIFA certainly made it very heavily incentivized by throwing a lot of money at this prize pool.
Well, they did. $1 billion prize pool, by the
Yep.
way. And that's every club in it's getting a lot of money. I think if you win it, you get something of 50 million or something. And then I'm sure there's other incentives on top of it. I know they went for $1 billion just so they could get a nice big round number, but FIFA's going for it. And we're going to talk about it.
So,
we'll see how it works
but
out.
that's the thing, right? If you play LAFC versus Club America, now they have a one-off game, and the owners, they're obviously looking at this much differently than the players in a sense, where the team that wins will get 9.5 million just to be part of it.
Damn. Is it one of the most expensive games that you can play, I think, in that sense? I mean, there are the matches. The most expensive match I know about right now is the final of the playoff and the championship, because if you get into the Premier League in England, you get about 100 million for that year. So that's a $100 million game. Continental, if you're in the playoff to get into the Champions League group stage, you get $17 million if you win that game. There aren't a lot of other single matches that create this kind of value for any club in the world.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
ton
And
of
I
money.
mean, this 9.5 million is on a scale, right? Like your big European teams like Real Madrid, they get a lot more money than 9.5 million just for showing up, based on like commercial revenue and like the size of the club and all those types of things. So that it's tiered. But for North American teams, I think it is, I'm pretty sure 9.5. And yeah, it's a big game for both those clubs. 9.5 million, I think, is a lot of money, and Club Leon will not be getting those 9.5 million.
Yeah.
So
Well, I will just for journalistic due diligence. Club Lyon has taken it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They've taken their case there, and the actual match date for this alleged play-in match is not going to be set until that arbitration is done. So we have a little while to wait to figure out when this is actually going to happen, how it's going to work into the season in Mexico and in the U.S., obviously, for these two teams. Hopefully, for Julian and Inter Miami's case, obviously, LAFC will have plenty of free time after this CONCACAF Champions Cup tie. So that would open up their schedule a little bit. But it is still up to the Court of the CAS, the Court of Arbitration in sport, to decide what's going to happen with Club Leon. But one of the teams that's going to be at that Club World Cup is Bayern. And one of the players that's not going to be there is Alphonso Davies. I don't know if you've been able to catch up with this situation. Are you aware of what happened here and how kind of weird it was?
yeah, I am somewhat, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it's like it is a situation where I almost don't know how big of a deal to make out of it, and we're going to kind of have to defer to you. And by we, I mean me and everybody else watching and listening to this podcast to what happens here, because Alphonso Davies plays in the Nations League, right? Left back, Bayern Munich, Canada captain. First game, they lose to Mexico. He gets a tweak in his knee. He does an interview with One Sport, who is the broadcaster in Canada. He says, I'm good. Jesse Marsh says, yeah, he's listed with a tweak. It's more kind of precautionary. Everything I'm hearing is that he's okay and he's fine. Then Alphonso Davies plays the second match against the U.S. I mean, he's the captain of Canada, for crying out loud. And he goes down with a torn ACL. But they don't know it. And they don't figure out he has a torn ACL until Bayern does a re-entry physical in Germany, which means he flew internationally from Canada to Germany with an undiagnosed torn ACL, which means somehow Canada missed that, right? At least that's the way the story is being told right now, is that the Canadian national team did not know that Davies had actually torn his ACL. They didn't quite have that figured out. So is that insane? You're somebody that's been in and out of national team camps before. Is it possible to miss that somebody has a torn ACL?
I mean, thankfully, I've never torn my ACL, and I'm knocking on my.
I'm knocking.
Yeah. So there's obviously the injury didn't present itself as like a swollen knee and like it's like huge, but the way I initially thought about this was the way national team camps end are usually everybody has their flights booked before they even arrive to the camp. So like after the final game is done, that I think third place game was on Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday evening or midday instead of Sunday evening was the final. So their flights out would have been Monday probably anyways. So I'm guessing Alphonso Davies traveled on Monday back to Munich, usually as quickly as possible. And maybe they were thinking about giving him an MRI while in the States. Maybe they were like, well, you can just fly and then do an MRI in Germany. So we wouldn't have to bump you and then have you stay here an extra day. You could go back to your club and you can kind of figure it out from there. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff out there in the media about miscommunication and not, the Federation of Canada and Bayern Munich not really communicating, so well, I guess, or understandably. Um, and but that's usually how it works for players. Like it's usually like after the game, it's like, all right, see you guys. Like some guys fly out like the next day at like 7, 8 a.m. Some guys, I don't know if they charter or whatever, if they have multiple players, like on the higher end players, I'm guessing they charter out. So I'm guessing it's a quick break afterwards, after those final games. So maybe he was just kind of caught in that, and they were like, okay, let's get you back to Munich. You can get a scan there, but um, yeah, certainly not a great situation, obviously for him. I feel gutted for him. Hoping he's going to be back for the World Cup, obviously next year. And um, in general, Bayern Munich has been in too much in the news for me, for bad reasons here.
Yeah. I mean, they're threatening to sue the Canadian national team. At least they said they were, the normal speak. They're pursuing they're exploring all legal options that might be available because they feel like Canada's put some malpractice in there. But there is a second part of the story that Bayern's really upset about. And that has to do with Alphonso Davies' agent. Because Alphonso Davies' agent has gone on a German press tour, basically, accusing the Canadian national team of pressuring Alphonso Davies to play the game against the United States. And I think that's really interesting because this is one of those gray areas where I feel like you can go back and try to rewrite history later. But essentially, the accusation from the agent is that they were under the impression Davies wouldn't be in the starting 11, but that the coach and the management, kind of the group, the leadership group, pressured Davies into playing. But then, of course, there were quotes about Davies saying that he wanted to play and all that. So how much does that sort of stuff happen in your experience? Like how much oxygen is there in the idea that Jesse Marsch would sit down with Davies and be like, hey, I really need you for this one?
I don't know Alphonso Davies as a person, but there's certainly moments that I've been a part of where some younger guys on teams were basically being told like, no, dude, like, come on, it's not that bad. Like you can go and play, like, medically you're fine and you should be playing, type of thing. Where I feel like as a captain of the national team and as Alphonso Davies, the person and the personality that he's grown into over the years, I feel like he wouldn't be one of those people. And I feel like he would be able to speak up for himself if he didn't want to play. I think he wouldn't have. And I don't think he would have suited up in that sense. Where I'm sure he wanted to play. I think everybody wants to play, right? As a player, like you always want to play. But at the same time, you obviously have to weigh your options in a sense. And if you are being a little bit hurt and you don't feel like you are 100%, then um, it's not how do I say it? It's not like, I guess you can just speak up and say I don't really want to play, but Alfonso I think didn't, and that's, I truly believe that he felt like he was able to play and compete for a third place match that maybe is a little bit of a crazy risk, but at the same time, like I
It's the
said,
US,
players want to play. Players
Yeah.
want to play. You don't want to miss games. You're the captain. You're kind of the leader. You're playing against the US. You just come off a loss. You want to rectify that. Like there's a different thought processes in there, and so yeah, it's a tough one.
It is. I also I don't know if I lend some. I don't know if I lend too much. That the discussion kind of went in a direction where, even if he wanted to play, the team should have tried to stop him. And I'm like, if you're giving him all available medical information and he goes, I want to play, I
Yeah,
think that's probably the end of the conversation. At
yeah,
least as far as
I think so.
adults. Yeah, I mean, these people that are expecting them to like strap Alphonso Davies to a pole outside the stadium so he doesn't go out on the field and try to play. I
I
think
mean,
that's just a little ridiculous.
yeah, there have been moments for me in my career, and these don't compare obviously to the stakes of this and the type of player Alfonso is or whatever, but where I was told that, I've tweaked my ankle a couple times, and I was told to, yeah, just give it 2 to 3 weeks. And honestly, I was back training like three days after. I was like, what are my risks here if I am playing on this? And they were like, you might just, or it's going to prolong the recovery process of it getting back to 100%. So you might feel it a lot longer. If you retweak it, you could obviously re-injure it. But as long as you have some sort of stability, you should be fine. And I was like, okay, well, I feel fine. I want to take that risk. So let me be out there. And I was playing the next weekend again. So like, it's not like coaches really are like, no, let's not have Alfonso Davies play here because we don't want to risk him. Whatever. Obviously, this is worst case, right? Tearing his
Yeah.
ACL after having a tweak
Oh,
in the knee,
definitely.
like it's insane. But and so yeah, there's that where, like I said, players usually want to play and they want to say that you can push through. Like I can push through things, and that if Alfonso Davies said yes, I want to play, then I don't think Jesse Marsh needed any more convincing to
No,
put him in.
he just goes, awesome, let's go. And we're
Yeah.
out the door. But there is another Bayern player that is being shown the door, and that is kind of sadly Thomas Müller. The news is, as we were kind of putting the show together, it was rumored. It is now kind of confirmed by Bild, who I believe does some good reporting on this type of stuff. Uh, can they are saying that it's a done deal, that Thomas Muller's contract is not going to be renewed, even though he wanted to come back. He's obviously played less. Love the number of Bayern stories we're able to get you here on the BNN, the Bayern News Network. The situation behind Harry Kane and Jamal Musiala, obviously he's playing less, but I always loved the way he played the game. And I figured he'd age very gracefully because it's not super dependent on his physicality in any way, which is obviously the first thing
Yeah.
everybody focuses on. But how do you feel as somebody that he's probably been playing for Bayern for almost all your adult life, watching
Yeah.
him play what
He is
seems like is going to be his last season?
he is Bayern Munich. Yeah. It's funny that this breaks around now because I think 2 weeks ago I just watched this documentary. There's a new documentary out about him leading up to the Euros on Amazon Prime. And I think it's all in German. I don't even know if you can get English subtitles, to be honest with you. But and that was a big thing of him. Like Tuchel came in and basically told him, "Hey, you're not going to play much." And that's when he like first time was like on the bench and not playing much, and his spot in the European, national team for Germany was on the line, and all those types of things. And it kind of follows him throughout that season. And he ultimately persevered and pushed through and got a new contract at Bayern and played well and was then impactful in the Euros as an older player that kind of led the young guys, knowing his role. A guy off the bench that comes in when there's goals needed. And that's, I think, what he is this year as well. Rotation type player that comes in when he's needed. And yeah, I think he has still more aspirations. I want to believe that he wants to play more, and maybe that's also part of the conversation a little bit, where he says, "Hey, maybe there's other options out there for me where I go away from Bayern, but I get to play during my last few years, and I don't just sit here on the bench, get my couple minutes here and there." So maybe there's that, but and at the same time, Bayern obviously also pay him in a not so little money, I think. So he would have salary aspirations as well, where um, that's just up to the club, I guess, up to Bayern Munich of deciding on the business end of that. But certainly be cool to see him here, don't you think?
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's what I've always struggled with this name, so make fun of me. But Lothar Matthäus,
Mateos, yeah.
yeah, he came out and said he thinks Thomas Muller should move to MLS. He thinks
I
that's the
think
move that should happen.
where I saw this. I think on Kicker, another big German news outlet, had an interview with Choupo-Moting from the New York Red Bulls, who just got here as a DP, and he was basically saying like, "Yes, break Thomas, come on, come nach to MLS." That's what he said, I think, and he would love to kind of give him some tips and advice and on that, I think. But yeah, I'd love to see him here. I'd love to play against him. I'd love to get to know him. He'd be great to have.
Oh yeah, that is that the jersey swap that you want to
Oh
grab
yeah,
the most? Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure.
That'd be a big
For
one.
sure. Oh, well, I hope that happens for you. And now we finally step away from the team near and dear to your heart to go to the team near and dear to my heart, New Zealand, who have qualified for the World Cup, my namesakes, for the first time since 2010. I know, very exciting. Yeah, they're one of 4 teams. Iran, Japan, and Argentina have also guaranteed, of course, outside the 3 host countries. In this window, a bunch more will be able to lock it in this summer. So World Cup qualifying is kind of getting to the business end here. But there was a lot of conversation about I got to pull this up. New Zealand's path to the World Cup, right? Because New Zealand plays in Oceania, which is the federation of basically the Pacific Ocean, right? Like it's the islands out there. It exists for the people that wonder why it exists in the first place, because who wants to pay for the Cook Islands, who are basically halfway into the Pacific, to travel to play Lebanon in a World Cup qualifier? Nobody, and that makes absolutely no sense for the development of either of those teams to have to make that trip. So Oceania needs to exist to give these teams an opportunity to organize and play each other in a way that isn't bankruptingly difficult to do. But New Zealand is obviously the biggest nation in this. Australia used to be in it, but moved to AFC because they are way closer to Asia. New Zealand's run 3-0 against Tahiti, 8-1 against Vanuatu, 8-0 against Samoa. Group stage done. 7-0 against Fiji in the semifinal, 3-0 against New Caledonia in the final. Credit to New Caledonia, it was 0-0 after 60 minutes. And Chris Wood left with an injury, and it was nervous. There were nervous Kiwis everywhere. I was nervous. And then New Zealand eased into a couple of goals thanks to Kostas Barbarouses, who's long been the savior on the wing for the All Whites, which is the name of the national team. That's not just me being randomly racist. Just thought I'd throw that out there. No, the best one is the basketball team nickname, the Tall Blacks.
Oh, interesting.
I know. It is. Well, then you have the rugby teams, the All Blacks. Each one of their national teams has a name like this. Maybe the best one, the field hockey team, the Black Sticks. I'm not making this up. Actual name of the field hockey team. I'm here for all of your fun New Zealand facts. But do you think that it is fair that Oceania gets a full qualifying spot? They actually get 1.5. New Caledonia is going to the Interconfederation playoff because they made the final. And they could go to the World Cup too, although that would require a probably pretty significant upset against whoever ends up in that playoff as well.
That is such a hard question for me to answer. Like, I have so little knowledge of all this stuff, and this is why you are on this podcast with me. This is exactly your segment, especially about New Zealand, But I mean, yeah, I don't know why wouldn't they get a full qualifying spot? Is there a federation out there that doesn't?
No, they have the fewest spots. The actual numbers are Oceania has 1.5. CONCACAF gets 6.5. Asia gets 8.5. Africa gets 9.5. And then Europe gets 16. Oh, in South America.
Wow.
Yeah, in South America gets 6.5 as well. So CONCACAF and South America actually have the same number of spots, which is kind of funny.
That's actually interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's so many more. There's only 10 teams in South America. Okay. So when you look at South America's table, 7 of those 10 teams are alive when the table ends. Because the 7th team goes to the playoffs. So you only knock 3 teams out when it's over. So it's kind of hard very difficult for the Argentinas and the Brazils of the world to actually miss the World Cup. But to bring it back to Oceania, they're obviously by far the smallest federation. But do you think it's cool that they get a spot? Yeah.
I do. I think so. And I think that's what the World Cup is about. And as it expands to more and more teams and then, and everything, I hope maybe they get a second full one as well. And I mean, these types of appearances at World Cups, they're once in a lifetime things for a lot of these players, and how it impacts a country, right? Like, just be represented there, I think is going to be amazing. There's I don't know, how many, New Zealand, I don't know, nationals live in the US or in Canada or maybe even Mexico outside of you, but it's certainly it's certainly going to be exactly. But it's certainly going to be cool, even for some of those people, for some of them to travel here. and get to experience this as fans, and just kind of have that pride, that proud feeling of their country being represented at the biggest soccer tournament in the world. And I think it's awesome.
I think people also, when they discuss Oceania, disregard how many people actually live there. It's obviously not a ton. But if you think about a nation like Iceland that made the World Cup, right? New Caledonia's population is very similar to that. It's about 300,000 people. Or Fiji, would you look at and you go, oh, that's where my water comes from, right? They have like 3 times as many people as Iceland does. And so if you do give those teams a kind of spark of hope, and you go, hey, like if you really focus on developing your national team here, there is a spot for you. All you have to do is beat New Zealand, which, love my team. They're not that good, right? Like they're gettable, right? It's not like New Caledonia was that far away. I think it creates hope for all these countries. And I think that's great. But the real key is, congrats to the Kiwis. Only undefeated team at the 2010 World Cup. 3 draws and then left because they got eliminated in the group stage. There's your fun. Wow. There's your last New Zealand fun fact. Okay, we are going to take a break. Then it's time to answer your questions. We've got your questions that you've posted in comments on YouTube, on comments on Instagram, and everywhere else. Thank you guys so much for those. Do want to shoot a congratulation. I know we have some listeners that are Newcastle fans. 300,000 people, allegedly. 1 New Caledonia's worth of people were out for the parade to celebrate the Carabao Cup for Newcastle. And I, for
were
one,
they?
I mean, that's a lot of people. Okay.
Yeah.
I saw the pictures. There were a ton of people there, and I don't want to be a hater. So I'll give it to them. But that's a lot of people. I mean,
yes.
New Caledonia is a big place. We were just talking about it. There's a lot of people. Okay, I'm happy for them. It's good to see teams that haven't won in a long time win something. So the first question is from Evil Clive. When you watch a match on TV, do you listen to the TV commentary or mute it so as to not let it distort your own analysis of what you are seeing? Julian, I'll let you go first.
I usually listen, unless they're really unbearing, and then I turn them off after a while. But that usually doesn't happen. I just think my part to some of the stuff that they're saying, and then just watch the game. I mean, honestly, there's so much going on. Usually it's very rare that I can actually sit down and actually focus and quiet and watch a game when I'm home. So with the little kids running around and I don't know, my wife asking me questions, there's always different things happening. But I usually listen to the commentary or just like have it on, not necessarily listen.
It's an interesting question. I usually have it on because I love good commentary. I mean, really good, even if it's in a different language. Like if I'm watching in Spanish or maybe I'm watching it and it's in Arabic or something, right? Maybe in a foreign country or whatever. And I'll leave it on if they've got a good cadence and I feel like, because it really augments the game.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like you feel the rise and fall. It is interesting because he talks about how it affects the analysis of the game. It really does. If the commentary of a game affects how people react to it way more than people think. Let's say a referee makes a minor mistake, but the analyst and the commentator just don't talk about it. It rarely becomes a big topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Like that almost never happens. But if something happens, and even if it's not that big of a deal, but the analyst goes, "Oh, this is unbelievable," then everybody's tweeting about it, talking about it on podcasts. Who would do that? Definitely not us. But that it dictates the conversation. So it's a very dangerous job to be in. But an interesting question. Thank you very much, Evil Clive. Shoes are not hammers on YouTube. If you could do one thing to grow interest in the sport in the U.S., what would you do? One thing. So obviously, this is a conversation we could do a whole podcast on, probably. But if you could do one thing, what would it be?
Oh man, you start on this one.
Oh, I would universally create a 4-tier promotion and relegation system. I mean, this is more than one thing, I guess. But the one thing I would do is blanket the U.S. in clubs, because I think it's a crime that I grew up in the 13th largest population center in the U.S., Tampa, Florida. And I had to drive an hour and a half from my front door to watch a professional team play. And in most countries in the world, that doesn't happen and shouldn't happen. And I think you miss a lot of kids not having that opportunity. So I would create a system that allows more clubs to exist and strive for more?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. For me, I think I would more so start it at the youth level, and I think we've kind of talked about this offline for a while to really get this youth development kind of segment, kind of questions in here where I think we can come back to that maybe over the next few weeks, kind of sporadically here, sprinkled in. But I think that's where I would start because it all starts with playing as a kid. I fell in love with this game as a kid, and you fell in love with this game as a kid, and now you're still somewhat attached to it, right? Even though you didn't make it professional, but
If it wasn't for my knee, I would
yes,
have.
the knee. I know the knee. But that's where I would start. I would try and find ways to get it more, popular for kids that, are kind of playing all sports, basketball, soccer, football, but then, choose baseball, but then choose maybe the other three, over playing soccer. And I think it's turning more towards that, but I think there's still so much talent and so many kids lost to these other sports, which, hey, it's totally normal, right? But I think that's where it takes a while. It's a long-winded thing to really get this game growing in a sense, right? Because it just takes years for these kids to grow up. So it's not easy to answer this with just like one thing. Oh yeah, I would get rid of the offside rule. Yeah, no, sorry, but that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Change the penalties back to the way they were in MLS.
Yeah,
No, it's
exactly.
there was one thing, Tony Kornheiser, who's part of Pardon the Interruption, which is a longtime sports talk show on ESPN in the United States, for those that aren't familiar with it. He knows nothing about soccer, but he always said the one thing that stuck with me on this, where he went, you'll know soccer has taken over the US the way that a lot of people think it might when an SEC football coach looks at the soccer field and goes, dang, I can't believe they stole that guy from me. That's like when you know. The final question is from Mike in Maryland, who wants to know, Zealand, who is your dream guest to have on the podcast? Julian, obvious. Oh, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of good answers to this, from like Lionel Messi, obviously, to maybe Clint Dempsey, who's my favorite U.S. national team player besides Julian. I think that the best person to have on the podcast that would be the most interesting to talk to, keeping it in the world of soccer, right? I think Jose Mourinho would be unbelievably interesting to talk to. I not only would he have all of the interesting stories, he's willing to talk about them in a way that other people aren't. If we get Pep on, he's going to explain positional play for 3 hours. But we're not going to get, what was it like in that dressing room in that moment? What did you do? And Jose Mourinho would give that to us.
Yeah.
What about you? I got to ask you the same question. Who would you bring on if you could?
That's a good one. I think, a storyteller, a guy that has a lot of stories to tell. I think that would be really interesting, right? About things like moments that stick out in my life. Like, listen, if I could have Leo Messi on, I would do it in a heartbeat. But I think just moments that stand out to me are, growing up around the game in Germany. I think it would have to be a guy related to Germany. I think it's Bastian Schweinsteiger. For me, obviously my idol, and a guy who's also played in MLS, so he knows MLS a little bit, and he could talk with us about this as well. But I think it's probably him, or maybe Jogi Löw, the coach who coached Germany for a long time. So probably along those lines.
I don't know if he's definitely, the inner machinations of Jogi Löw's mind are interesting. That would be interesting to try and unpack. Obviously, I need to brush up on my German, but hopefully we can get all of those people on the podcast someday. That would be fantastic. But for right now, we've reached the end of the podcast. Feel free to throw in the YouTube comments where you're from and around the world. We'll try to keep track of where everybody's from, maybe read them off at the start of the next podcast. Also, be sure to put in your questions on YouTube, on Instagram, and we will see you next week. Please subscribe or else we can't eat.
Thanks, guys.